fast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to roll-out facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on. The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome back to the Bullvine Podcast, where we cut through dairy industry noise to get you the insights that actually matter for your operation.
And today we're really diving deep into a feature piece that's been making some serious waves. It's called the Dairy Mirage.
I read this analysis and, well, it felt like someone finally put words to that sinking feeling I've had in my gut for the last 5 years.
Right.
The core idea is just devastatingly simple. The author isn't arguing that the system is broken.
No, not at all. The argument is that the system is, in fact, performing exactly as it was designed to.
And that's the scary part.
Precisely. We have to, shed this comforting idea that this is just a market failure or some unpredictable cycle. Mm-hmm. What we're looking at is a fundamentally extractive business model.
Where the value is pulled away from the producer on purpose.
Yes, intentionally at every single step of the supply chain. That extraction is the design.
And that matters right now, today. Because if you're one of the thousands of operators out there hanging on, just hoping for better margins next quarter, maybe next year, this deep dive is going to show you exactly who profits from that hope and what your loyalty, what that sheer grit is actually costing you in hard equity.
We're going to look at the cold, hard numbers. We need to see where the dollars are actually leaving your farm and landing directly in someone else's P&L statement.
And we're also going to have to confront that brutal truth from the article.
The one that people say behind closed doors, that small dairies are often viewed by the people running the show as being, well, emotionally important, but economically irrelevant.
And crucially, we're going to dissect why the popular solutions, the things that promise salvation like organic conversion, which feels like such a great choice.
Or relying on your co-op.
Right, relying on co-op loyalty. Why those are often just, polite ways to harvest your last few dollars before the final sale. It's a tough conversation, but it's a necessary one.
Let's start with the math then. The numbers that really dictate the terms of survival in modern dairy. This is the data point that, frankly, nobody in the mainstream industry wants to admit out loud.
Because it tells the whole story.
It tells the entire story. We're talking about the cost of production data from the USDA's Economic Research Service, the ERS.
Okay, so lay it out for us. Give us the numbers that show this huge divide.
So the ERS data, and this is across multiple regions, multiple years, it details this massive discrepancy in production costs, and it's tied directly to herd size.
Bigger is cheaper, we know that. But how much cheaper?
It's a chasm. Small herds, and we're talking fewer than 100 cows, the classic family farm, they produce milk at a cost of somewhere between $42 and $44 per hundredweight.
Okay, $42 to $44.
Now, you compare that to the large herds, the industrial operations, 2,000 cows and up, they produce that same hundredweight of milk for $19 to $20.
Wait, hold on. I need to make sure I heard that right. That's a $23 difference per hundredweight.
Exactly, a $23 gap in the fundamental cost structure.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is not a margin problem you can fix with a better ration or, tighter management. I'm out here fighting every single day. I'm poring over spreadsheets, trying to trim a quarter here, maybe 50 cents there.
With robotics, with apps.
Exactly. But $23, you can't close that. It's an unbridgeable chasm.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Mm.
This proves it isn't a management problem on the small farm. It's a systemic economic reality. The smaller farm is operating at literally double the cost structure of the largest operations.
But then, the question I have to ask is, if that gap is so massive, why are we still here? Why haven't all the small dairies just vanished already?
That's the critical follow-up, and the source material explains it. See, the ERS calculation includes everything. Feed, hired labor, vet costs, depreciation.
And the important ones.
And crucially, return to management and unpaid family labor.
So when the mega farm hits $19, they've spread the cost of a $2 million robotic system across 2,500 cows. So the cost per hundredweight just shrinks to almost nothing.
Precisely. Let's look at what's driving that $23 difference. First, volume purchasing power. A mega farm buying 3 semi-loads of silage a day gets a price a 100-cow farm can never, ever touch.
That's probably $4 to $6 per hundredweight right there.
The source estimates that, yes. Then there's labor. The large operation automates everything. One herdsman overseeing 500 cows. The small farm is paying for labor, whether it's the owner or a family member, and that cost is baked into that $44 figure.
And I bet financing is another one. They get better rates.
Of course, preferential rates from institutional lenders, it all adds up.
So the $44 producer, like me, isn't necessarily inefficient. I'm fundamentally priced out of the commodity market before my milk even leaves the farm.
Correct. The only way that $34 farm survives is by sacrificing something. Either they don't pay themselves a negative return on management, or they just burn through their equity to cover the operating loss.
And what about the farms in the middle? The 400 to 800 cow dairies trying to scale up.
They get stuck in the most dangerous position of all. They take on all the debt risk of scaling up new parlors, massive machinery, but they never actually reach the efficiencies of the 2,000-plus cow operations.
So you have all the debt, but none of the real benefit.
You're just a high-risk buffer zone for the banks.
Which brings us back to that awful quote you mentioned earlier, the one from the meeting in Madison.
Right. The quote that really captures the systemic view, a co-op board member reportedly leaned back and said, "Small dairies are emotionally important, but economically irrelevant."
Emotionally important, economically irrelevant. That is just a devastating, cold-hearted phrase. But it explains so much, doesn't it?
It does. It explains why the people at the top know this. They know most of their members are operating at double the cost, but they won't publish it. Because if you admit that, you have to admit the system is designed to service the large farms.
And the small ones are just window dressing.
Or, more practically, a temporary supply buffer. Their losses are actually a mechanism that provides stability for the big players in the system.
So if the economics prove that efficiency is just a mirage for the average farm, where do they go? They start looking for a premium, right?
Exactly. They turn to the siren song of a higher price. Solutions dressed up as market alternatives. And let's start with the most popular one, the organic trap.
Oh, yeah. Every time prices crash, someone says it. Go organic. Get $8 more per hundredweight. Save the farm. It sounds like salvation.
It does. But the data shows that for the majority, it's not a viable path. Converting is this massive multi-year commitment. The land has to be chemical-free for 36 months.
3 full growing seasons.
And the cattle have to be on organic rations for 12 months before you even qualify for certification, before you see a dime of that premium.
That's 3 years of higher expenses before you see any benefit. That takes a mountain of operating capital.
And the cost hike is severe. The Cornell 2024 Organic Dairy Study breaks it down. Feed costs jump a staggering 30 to 40% when you switch to organic rations.
And let's talk about sourcing that feed. It's not just the cost, it's the availability, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. In many areas, you just can't get certified organic corn or soybeans locally. So you're shipping it in from hundreds of miles away. It adds massive risk and logistical cost.
Which is why your tank weights often drop.
They drop by about 8% on average during that transition. The new ration just isn't always optimized for peak yield.
Okay, let's crunch the numbers for that 250 cow example from the source. This is where the Mirage really disappears.
For that 250 cow farm, you're looking at an extra $180,000 a year in feed costs, about $10,000 in certification fees, and another $40,000 in lost yield from that production drop.
That's $230,000 in sunk costs before the first premium check ever clears the bank.
A $230,000 hole just to get to the starting line. If you are already struggling, how can you possibly survive that?
You can't. And that's what happened to Dan Richter, the farmer in Cashin, Wisconsin. That quote from him is just haunting.
We made it to certification, but we were broke before the first organic load hit the plant.
They did everything right. They completed the marathon, and then they collapsed right at the finish line because the cost just bled them dry.
So if the data is so clear, the Cornell study suggests 2/3 of these transitions never reach sustainable profitability. Why do the consultants and the programs keep pushing it?
Because they get paid no matter what.
Exactly. The program isn't designed to save the farmer. It's designed to extract from the process. The feed suppliers make their margin on that expensive feed. The certifiers get their 10 grand. The consultants get their fees.
They get paid up front. The farmer takes on 100% of the risk, and the support industry takes 100% of the guaranteed margin.
It makes that organic salvation feel less like a lifeline and more like a final, expensive obligation.
Okay, let's talk about the other big fix they push at extension meetings. Equipment sharing co-ops.
This one appeals directly to that need to trim capital expenses.
As a farmer, I have to say, I'm just deeply skeptical of anything that makes me rely on my neighbor's schedule when a weather window is closing.
Your skepticism is well-founded. On paper, it sounds great. Pool your resources, buy one big forage harvester, and cut overhead. The University of Minnesota Extension said it could shave about 10% off ownership costs.
10% sounds decent on a $400,000 machine. That's 40 grand. But where does that benefit disappear?
It disappears into chaos and liability. The same extension office followed up and found that downtime climbed by 20% because of scheduling conflicts. Everyone needs that chopper on the same 2 sunny days in October.
And when my neighbor is rushing because I'm waiting, he's driving that machine hard. So repair costs go up.
They eat another 7%. The net gain just evaporates. And then you have the liability. If that shared manure tanker crashes into a school bus, who gets sued?
The co-op, which means me.
Right. And the source noted the high cost of the specialized legal counsel and insurance just to set these things up. Another 5% in annual costs, just for legal fees.
Which is why they all fall apart. That quote from the Verocco producer just sums it all up. We spent more time arguing over whose turn it was to use the chopper than actually chopping.
It stops being about farming and starts being about arbitration. It's the reality of partitioning urgency. Weather dictates the timeline. The only people who really win are the sales reps who sold the machine.
All right, let's get to the core of this. Let's follow the money. We keep hearing manage costs better, but we need proof that our losses are directly tied to someone else's gains.
Okay, let's trace the money using the source's benchmark 250 cow dairy. We'll pinpoint exactly where the dollars leave the farm.
Let's start with the biggest one, feed.
Based on USDA data, that 250 cow dairy spends roughly $580,000 a year on feed. Now, the feed companies, they operate on very healthy margins. The source puts their net margin somewhere between 8 and 12%.
8 to 12%. Let's translate that into what it costs the farmer over time.
Over 3 years, that consistent margin means between $175,000 and $240,000 is transferred out of the farm's pocket and into the feed company's coffers.
Money that leaves my farm and becomes stable, predictable profit for them. No matter what, I get paid for my milk.
Next up, the bank. Finance. They get paid first.
Always.
The Farm Credit System reports that operating and mortgage interest averages around 6.8%. For a dairy that size, with typical loans, that's about $85,000 a year, just in interest.
85 grand. A fixed payment. Paid before I pay myself a single dime.
Finally, the processor and the hauler. Rabobank's latest outlook says most processors net around $3.50 per hundredweight after their costs, but before they pay the farmer.
So for that 250 cow farm, what does that translate to in raw dollars?
It translates to $575,000 extracted from that single farm's production annually. That's the locked-in profit they get just for moving the product.
So when you stack all that up, feed, finance, processing, the amount of money leaving the farm is just staggering. It completely inverts how you see success.
Right. We celebrate these companies for their record quarters, but those record quarters are a direct result of the financial stress on producers.
It leads to that accountant's brutal math you mentioned. What was it again?
For every dollar a farm burns in equity, someone up the chain makes $6.
$6 made for every one I lose. How does that ratio even work?
It's because their businesses have fixed high margins, and the farm's margin is the fluctuating bit that's left over. When the milk price drops, your margin shrinks or goes negative.
But the bank still gets its 85 grand. The feed company still gets its 10%.
Exactly. When your farm starts losing money-burning equity, it means you're still covering their stable profits while depleting your own capital. Your loss maintains their profitability.
I'm subsidizing their stable business model with my family's legacy.
That's the key. So when someone says manage costs better, you have to realize your slow erosion of equity is financing their record quarter.
Okay, let's look at a subtler form of extraction. The component bonus.
Yes, the one dressed up as an incentive. Processors love to brag about these.
And when you see that extra $1.25 on the check, it feels like a win. I mean, when the base price is 16 or 17 bucks, that's a huge psychological boost.
But you have to look at what it costs to chase that premium. You don't get high components for free. Cornell nutritionists estimate it requires a big ration bump expensive proteins and fats costing about $75,000 a year for that 250 herd.
Plus another $15,000 for consultants and testing.
Right. So you're in for $90,000 in extra expense just to try and capture that premium.
And what's the net gain after all that?
Best case scenario, maybe $20,000. That's a massive amount of risk and attention for a minimal return.
But the processor is the one who really benefits. We need to quantify their win.
Okay, so they get uniform, high solids milk. That means less water, which saves them a ton on hauling costs. For powder plants, it's way less energy for evaporation. For cheesemakers, it means less time and fewer additives.
So I spend $90,000 to improve their input quality, lower their energy use, and cut their logistics costs. And I get maybe a tenth of that back as a reward.
That is the math of the management leash, which brings us to that quote from the New York nutritionist.
Yeah, that one hit home.
Protein bonuses aren't a windfall, they're a management leash.
A management leash. Let's break that down. What does that really mean?
It means the processor, with a relatively small incentive, is effectively dictating your entire feeding program, your testing, your consulting. It subtly controls your operational decisions.
Because if I tried to simplify my ration to save that 75 grand, I'd lose the premium and maybe my market.
The bonus structure ensures you remain obedient to their needs, whether you see a true benefit or not. It's loyalty demanded, not loyalty rewarded.
So if this is all a choreographed extraction, where is it all heading?
Towards extreme consolidation and bottlenecking. At every level, market, genetics, logistics.
Let's start with the consolidation forecast, because those numbers are just shocking.
The USDA's projections to 2034 are, well, they're alarming. They project we'll have only 12 to 15,000 dairies left by 2030.
We're at about 26,000 now. So we're on track to lose over half the dairies in the next 6 years.
It's an acceleration of the extraction plan, and it comes with this frightening concentration of control. Look at the Rabobank data on market control.
Who's left holding the power?
Rabobank projects that just 6 processors will control 80% of the entire U.S. milk flow within the decade. 6 entities deciding the price, the terms, the standards for 4/5 of the country's milk.
The leverage they'll have is unbelievable. And the bottleneck isn't just in the plant, it's in the genetics too.
The Council on Dairy Cattle Breeding report from 2025 showed that 5 Holstein sires now sire 82% of all replacements in the U.S. herd.
5 bulls.
5 bulls controlling the genetic future of an entire food sector.
So if you own the market and you own the genetics, you own the whole industry. The small farm has no control over price and no control over the biological inputs they have to buy just to stay in the game.
It creates a perfectly insulated extractive loop. And the impact isn't just on the balance sheet, it's devastating the rural landscape.
What does that loss of farms mean for local communities?
UW-Madison economists calculated it. Each 100-cow farm loss strips $500,000 from the regional rural economy annually.
$500,000 gone. That's not abstract. That's the local vet clinic closing, the feed store going under, the mechanic with no tractors to service.
It's the declining tax base that starves the local schools. And you can see it when you drive through dairy country. The boarded barns, the auction today signs. This isn't chaos, the source says. This is a deliberate, predictable business plan.
This deep dive forces us to challenge everything, even the sacred cows. And that has to include the co-op structure. Historically, co-ops were our shield.
They were. That's their foundational history. Solidarity, producer protection, a stable market. But that structure has been quietly, strategically inverted.
I have to push back a little here. My grandfather built our farm because of the co-op. Are you saying decades of loyalty and commitment mean nothing when the chips are down? The co-op has a duty to protect the small guy, right?
That's the emotional expectation, but the structure doesn't support that duty anymore. The 2024 GAO report on co-op governance revealed the shift. 78% of major U.S. co-ops now use milk volume voting.
So one member, one vote is basically gone.
It's been replaced by cubic tons of milk per vote.
Meaning if I produce 10,000 pounds a day and the mega farm produces 200,000, they have 20 times the voting power I do.
Exactly. The mega farms, who already have that massive $23 cost advantage, now control the governance, the board seats, and the strategic direction of the co-op. The small farmer is left with effectively no voice.
You hear that frustration. That quote from the Brookings County farmer is just painful. My co-op makes more on hauling my milk than I make milking the cows.
And again, the GAO data supports that. The report shows that the co-op processing divisions now generate more profit than they distribute to members in payments. The co-op's processing wing is succeeding at the expense of its own smaller members.
So the organization built to be member first has flipped to margin first.
And that brings us to the most heartbreaking part of this, the emotional trap of just one more year.
That's the phrase you hear when a farm has gone from hopeful to cornered.
And who profits most from that delay? The bankers, the feed mills, the processors, they're the ones who want you to hang on. They'll offer extensions because it maximizes their extraction window.
Tom Green's analysis called it equity farming for other people.
That's precisely what's happening. Every year, a small dairy runs at a loss, and we know the $44 cost structure guarantees a loss. That $85,000 in interest still goes to the bank. The $580,000 in feed sales still goes to the supplier.
And my farm's equity, the land, the machinery, just erodes away to cover it all.
The longer you stay running at a loss, the more they gain. That's the hidden calculated cost of loyalty.
All right, let's bring this home. The farmer listening right now, they just finished milking, they're driving to the feed store, and they've just heard their whole business is an extractive trap. What are the 3 things they need to do?
Immediate, medium, and long term. What are the actions?
Okay, first thing. The immediate action this week is about securing truth, not more time.
So what's the action?
Call your accountant, not your lender. The bank wants to extend the loan. The accountant deals in cold, hard truth. You need to run your true net financial position after including 2 critical costs: unpaid family labor at a market rate and true depreciation on all assets.
Not just the tax depreciation.
No, you need to see the real number.
Okay.
If you're truly losing $100,000 a year, you need to know that now.
Okay, so once you have that brutal truth, what's the medium-term strategy?
Next 3 to 6 months, get a land appraisal. This is purely about equity preservation. The source material noted that Midwest farmland values finally plateaued in 2025. That window might be closing.
So if an exit is on the table, you act while you still have that equity. Don't wait until the bank is dictating the sale price.
Exactly. And that leads to the long-term positioning.
The hardest part.
The hardest part. The next 1 to 2 years, run 2 lists and hold a family meeting.
What are the 2 lists?
List 1 is the stay scenario. What's the emotional, physical, and financial cost? Project that $100,000 annual equity loss forward 5 years. List 2 is the exit scenario. What could you do if you kept that $2.5 million in equity clean?
You're forcing the decision to be about math, not just emotion.
And you have to have that family meeting. Now, this isn't quitting. It is protecting what generations build before the system finishes the job for you. Saving the family's financial legacy is the ultimate strategic move here.
This has been another deep dive from the Bullvine Podcast. If this kind of analysis helps your operation cut through the noise, you should head to www.thebullvine.com. There are more articles there that tell you what's really happening in dairy.
And seriously, subscribe wherever you get your deep dives. We're releasing these twice a week now, and trust me, you do not want to miss what we have coming next week. We're talking about regenerative grazing programs.
And who is really benefiting financially from that trend, too?
The entire premise of this deep dive was that the dairy system isn't failing. It's succeeding exactly the way it was designed to.
So you need to ask yourself that final question. If everyone else, the bank, the feed company, the processor is making money off my financial losses, how long am I willing to play the game?